When the Navy told me my husband died a hero, I believed them. I stood at his funeral, hands shaking under that perfectly folded flag, and swore I'd keep faith with the institution that took him. 3 years later, I saw his name again, signed on a billion-dollar defense contract dated after his death. My husband was dead, but someone was still using his hand to make money off his grave. That was the moment something in me cracked. My loyalty, my silence, my fear. I, Elara Vance, decided to break the very protocol I once lived by. Because if the dead can't speak for themselves, then I would. The wind off the Pacific carried the smell of salt and oil across the naval yard, fluttering the rows of American flags that lined the entrance. The ceremony had already begun. Uniforms in perfect formation. Medals glinting under the California sun. From a distance, it all looked immaculate. From where I stood, it felt like a lie I could almost touch. They called the names of the fallen one by one. Then the projector lit up the next slide, a list of personnel who had contributed to the new National Defense Initiative, Project Horizon Gate. Halfway down that list, I saw it. Technical authorization. Lieutenant David Vance. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. My husband had been dead for 3 years. I had signed his death certificate myself. I turned to Commander Gideon beside me. My voice was barely steady. Why is his name here? He didn't meet my eyes, just said calm and bored that the system sometimes reuses data. Nothing to worry about. He called it a clerical error. I called it impossible. When the national anthem played, the crowd saluted, but I heard only the crash of waves against the pier. Inside my pocket, the folded flag they'd handed me at David's funeral pressed against my palm, reminding me of everything the Navy said was sacred. A young officer behind me chuckled, murmuring to his friend. Guess even the dead are signing papers these days. I froze. The laughter echoed longer than it should have. That night, I broke into the internal finance server and searched the project logs. His name was there. The signature was real, the timestamp from 5 months ago. I hit print, heart pounding. And as the document slid from the machine, the screen flashed a warning in red, access revoked. Unauthorized query flagged. Someone had seen me. By the time I stepped out into the San Diego sunlight, the base looked the same, orderly, bright, proud. But I knew something rotten lived underneath all that shine. If the dead could sign contracts, then someone among the living was cashing in on their silence, and I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The elevator hummed as it climbed toward the ballroom of the Hay Adams, the reflection of the White House glittering in the glass. I checked my name badge, EV Technical Support, and fixed a loose strand of hair back into the bun at the nape of my neck. They'd summoned me from San Diego for security system oversight. In a city built on polished lies that sounded almost poetic. The ballroom smelled of money and polished brass. Generals, politicians, and defense magnates laughed beneath a chandelier bright enough to blind judgment. Admiral Corbin Valerius stood at the podium, his voice low and steady as he spoke about legacy, sacrifice, and the future of national security. The crowd clapped on cue. Then the main screen came alive with the new contract. I saw it before anyone else did. Halfway down the digital page in black letters beneath the golden seal authorized Lieutenant David Vance. Every muscle in my body locked. Valerius kept talking, his words fading under the roar in my ears. My husband's name sat there clean and proud as if he'd never drowned under the iron sky. My fingers tightened around the stem of the wine glass until it trembled. I stepped forward, pretending to wipe a speck of dust from the glass table. The next moment, the glass slipped. Red wine spilled across the page, spreading like blood through water. The crowd gasped. General Cole Mercer, overseeing the event, bent down, touched the stain, and frowned at the seal. His gaze met mine, sharp, calculating. Then he spoke, his voice slicing through the music. Lock the doors. Every sound stopped. The band froze mid-note. Security sealed the exits, and for one unbearable second, the entire room was held hostage by silence. Valerius's smile vanished. Mercer straightened, eyes still on me as if he'd just awakened to something ugly and old. Hours later, they questioned me in a windowless room. Mercer sat across from me, but said nothing until the end. He simply murmured, "You just prevented a mistake bigger than you know." Then he left, leaving the smell of cold coffee and burned reputation behind him. I wasn't released until dawn. From the hotel window, the White House shimmered across the reflecting pool. My reflection looked like a stranger's. I whispered to the glass that if a protocol existed only to bury guilt, it wasn't worth obeying. 2 days later, at the Washington Navy Yard, the corridors felt hollow, as if the building itself was listening. I was handed an official suspension notice for compromising national security procedures. The press would never hear a word of it. The Navy made sure of that. Valerius vanished behind meetings and handlers. Mercer, however, found me in the underground parking lot. His voice raised with exhaustion when he asked what I'd seen in that contract. My answer came out flat. My husband's name. He's dead. He studied me a long moment before saying quietly. Then you understand it's not only the dead they exploit. The living too if they stay silent. He hesitated, then confessed he'd once signed the draft version of Project Horizon Gate. He hadn't known Valerius had changed it. If you keep quiet, they'll call you disciplined. If you speak, they'll call you disloyal. As he turned to leave, his words hung in the damp air of the garage. Lock the doors, Elara. Don't let them escape. Later at the interrogation desk, a cup of coffee had gone cold at surface, mirroring an upside-down flag under the fluorescent light. When I walked out into the drizzle, I saw young sailors drilling in perfect rhythm. Discipline looked beautiful, like tragedy rehearsed. That night, I boarded a red-eye out of Washington, the stained printout folded inside my coat. On the back of my ticket, I wrote a single line in pencil. If I disappear, look for me in the records of the dead. I didn't know then that it was a prophecy I'd one day fulfill. Helen kept David's room frozen in time. His half-built ship model, the wedding photo on the desk. The air faintly smelling of dust and pine. She still believed in God and in the government, the kind of faith that made her whisper, "Don't fight people with guns." But silence had already killed enough. While cleaning, I noticed the back of a photo frame was loose. Inside, sealed in plastic, lay a small USB labeled Horizon Gate, AEG-12. I plugged it into David's old laptop. His face appeared pale in the glow of a field lamp. If you're watching this, I didn't make it back. Horizon Gate isn't defense, it's a front. They're selling navigation tech to outsiders. And that retreat order, it didn't come from the Pentagon. The screen flickered, then went dark. Files began deleting one by one. I ripped the hard drive out just before the message appeared for internal eyes only. Someone knew. A helicopter passed low outside. Helen's voice trembled from the hallway. They know, don't they? I'm not searching for trouble, I said. I'm picking up the truth they threw away. That night, I called Reese Fallon. You're being tracked, he whispered. Your access was wiped this morning. Do you still trust me? You're the only one who can't afford to lie. He told me to meet him in Denver. Before leaving, Helen handed me David's folded flag. If they've forgotten honor, you remember the flight north was quiet until the man beside me, wearing a Navy ring, smiled thinly. You work for Arcturus. Used to work for the Navy. Same thing out here, he said. Anchorage was white silence. Under the alias E. Vallon, I found the Midnight building marked authorized personnel. Only. Its payment logs showed a $60 million transfer to North Star Logistics Zurich uploaded by Fallon. My phone buzzed. Stop. You're touching your own people. Then silence. Past midnight, I fled as men in suits searched the dorms. Snow cut my face as I ran. A black SUV waited in the blizzard headlights, slicing through the dark. General Mercer stepped out. You shouldn't have come. They're killing people to bury this, I said. He nodded slowly. I thought I signed a defense project. Now I'm not sure what I built. He gave me his old service coat. You'll need it to get through the wind. We agreed to expose everything, whatever it cost. When he warned I'd be branded a traitor, I said I've already lost everything but the truth. As we drove off, city lights faded behind us. Mercer asked if I was ready for a war with no winners. As long as it doesn't end in silence, I said. Behind us, a drone's green light blinked through the snow. The hunt had begun. Snow hammered the windows like fists. The cabin shook each time the wind howled down from the ridge. Mercer tossed me his spare coat, muttering that the air here froze both skin and conscience. I pulled it tight and stared at the flickering laptop screen. The Arcturus compound 3 miles away glowed like a steel hive in the blizzard. Somewhere inside lay what David had died for. We moved at midnight, sliding past the perimeter fence into a loading bay. The data vault was colder than the air outside. Inside one drive, we found hundreds of shadow payments, millions wired to a Swiss shell company called North Star Logistics. Each document bore the same signature, R. Valerius. This was it, the proof. Mercer whispered that Valerius was laundering defense money under the names of the dead. The alarm wailed before he finished. Cameras came alive and suddenly our own faces flashed across every monitor. They knew we were inside. We ran through dark corridors as red lights spun. When the blast door sealed, Mercer was trapped outside. His voice crackled over the radio. Go north. Then gunfire. I forced the door open to find him bleeding but alive. 2 men on the floor in civilian gear. Not Navy. Private contractors. Later in the getaway SUV, he spoke into the silence. He'd once taken $150,000 from Arcturus, a consulting honorarium, he called it. His breath shook as he said he'd been bought before he knew the cost. I told him redemption looked a lot like this drive we were holding. Then the dashboard lit up. Breaking news declared us fugitives. Elara Vance and General Mercer wanted for leaking classified defense data. My name, my face already poisoned. Outside, blue strobes from a patrol shimmered through the snow like a trembling truth still shining in the storm. Mercer promised we'd reach D.C. before they rewrote the story. I told him if I had to die, at least it would mean something. The SUV cut a single line through the white, the only road left for honor. 3 days later, the Capitol was blanketed in ice. Every TV screen showed our mug shots while Valerius delivered his clean, careful speech, calling us 2 broken patriots chasing ghosts. We hid in a cramped apartment in foggy bottom radio, filling the silence. Mercer asked if I still had the backup drive. I handed him one and said the other was already gone to a senator's aide I thought I could trust. My phone vibrated. A message flashed from Reese. Don't trust Kincaid. He's funded by Arcturus. The words froze me. If Reese was captured, who sent it? Or worse, had he been turned? Mercer only sighed that all we had left was the law and the truth. We tried to reach the ethics committee ourselves. At the Pentagon gate, 2 MPs stopped us. The younger one flinched when I said Valerius's name. His brother, he told me, quietly, died at a John. He lowered his rifle and whispered, I don't see you here. Go through the side entrance. That boy would later carry our real drive inside. Alarms blared as we ran down the emergency corridor. Red lights flashed against steel walls, painting everything the color of blood and revelation. Mercer murmured, lock the doors before they run again. Then Reese appeared, badge glinting, eyes hollow. He told me I was under arrest. I saw the gun shaking in his hands. When I asked why, he said Arcturus had his sister. Mercer stepped forward, voice hard. Choose, son. Orders or honor? Reese lowered his weapon. I can't kill another honest soul. He opened the door for us, then turned back to block the guards. The door slammed shut behind us, sealing him on the other side. Lock the doors, I whispered. For the second time, those words saved a life. In the dark room beyond, I plugged the drive into the terminal. Mercer stood beside me, blood soaking through his sleeve. His voice dropped to a rasp. "You know this will expose us too, don't you?" I nodded. Honor's worth burning for once, better than being buried with lies. The screen flickered alive. Files opened one by one. Outside, the sirens faded. The final door had locked. Rain tapped against the tall windows of the ethics chamber, soft but relentless. 5 officials sat across from us, faces carved in stone. Between Mercer and me lay the drive that had nearly gotten us killed. Senator Kincaid asked if I knew what I was accused of. I said I did, but forging the dead to sign blood money contracts was the real crime. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on me. I connected the drive. The screen flickered. Horizon Gate. Classified Video 12. David's face appeared through smoke and chaos. His voice steady but fraying. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. Horizon Gate isn't defense. It's a deal. They ordered us to retreat. Not to save lives, but to bury proof. If you still believe Alara, remember, honor doesn't need a signature, only action." The footage ended. I couldn't breathe. Mercer stepped forward, placing a folder before them. Original contracts. Valerius's signature layered over David Vance's, same time, same date. The door burst open. Valerius entered with guards shouting that we were traitors. Mercer rose, voice steady as steel. "I fought to protect truth, not men who sell it." Kincaid turned pale, holding the evidence. "Your name's on every Arcturus transfer for 18 months. Forgery." Valerius barked. "No, I said it's your real signature on a lie." Then it looked at the panel. Sometimes breaking protocol is the only way to protect what it was built for. The room went silent again. Justice had its proof. And though the truth was ours, I knew we'd never walk out unscarred. 3 weeks later, DC was buzzing with headlines. Admiral Valerius stripped of command. Arcturus under criminal investigation. $2 billion scandal shakes national defense. Reporters called it justice. To me, it felt hollow, like silence dressed in applause. They cleared my name but didn't give my position back. Mercer refused interviews, meeting me one last time by the PTOIC. The wind carried the scent of cold water and old leaves. He asked what I do now. I told him I didn't want a uniform again, just for people to remember not to sign for the dead. He smiled sadly. "They'll forget," he said, "unless you write it yourself." He handed me a thin folder marked Harbor Ethics Draft. It was the report the Navy planned to bury. "Write it before they rewrite history," he said, and walked away. That night, as I packed to leave the city, a black car stopped outside. 2 men in suits dropped an envelope at my door. Offer of silence. $500,000 to keep my mouth shut. I burned it in the sink, watched the ashes scatter into the dark. "This door isn't locked out of fear," I whispered, "but to guard what's still clean." I moved to Yaquina Bay, Oregon. The sea roared outside my window, the air sharp with salt and solitude. Each night I sat by a wooden desk and began to write the title clear from the start. Lock the doors. Lamplight shimmered over David's folded flag. Waves struck the cliffs below, steady and defiant. I typed the final line: "Some doors must stay locked, not to hide the wrong, but to protect the right from being killed." I closed the laptop and let the darkness breathe. The ocean was restless, but my heart finally was still. Morning. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, soft and endless. My cabin overlooked the bay where fishermen once docked their boats during the war. The world was quiet here, just gulls, salt air, and the faint hum of a life rebuilt in silence. One morning, I found an unmarked envelope on my porch. Inside was a handwritten letter from a midshipman at the Naval Academy. "Mrs. Vance, the lecture locked the doors, made me choose honor over ambition. We don't know who you really are, but thank you for reminding us that the truth is still worth believing in." I folded the letter carefully, tears warming my face. I placed it beside David's folded flag, the same one that had witnessed both his death and my redemption. Outside the wind rose, sweeping a loose page of my manuscript into the sunlight. I stepped out, catching it before it drifted to the sea. Looking over the waves, I whispered. We couldn't save everyone, David. But we kept the truth alive. The sun broke through the mist, scattering light across the water like shards of glass. Far offshore, a small training ship cut through the horizon, the American flag rippling proud and bright. Lock the doors, boys, I murmured. Keep it safe. From a distance, the cabin glowed in the sunset's reflection, a quiet witness to the truth it had guarded all along. Honor doesn't need applause. It only needs witnesses.